All right, we can go ahead and get started. I'd like to thank everyone for taking the time to register for today's webinar. My name is Chris Cooper, and I work for Cinemassive, a company headquartered in Atlanta, and we've been designing and deploying advanced video wall solutions for command and control room spaces since 2005. Before we get started, please note that you can submit any questions you have in the chat box in the lower right-hand corner, and we will cover all of them at the end of the presentation. In addition, we will be sending a link to the recording of this webinar to everyone who registered. Tom Polivka, our Vice President of Sales, will kick us off with a short presentation. Then Aaron Leiker, our Executive Vice President of Sales Strategy, will walk us through a short demonstration of CineAgent, Cinemassive's newest video technology innovation. So with that in mind, I'd like to go ahead and turn the webinar over to Tom.
Thanks, Chris. And thanks to all of you for taking the time to hear about a topic that is becoming so important for everyone that deploys or manages command centers. I'll provide a short introduction here before we segue to our demo. So the terms command center and control room, which, by the way, we might use interchangeably during this webinar, mean different things to different people. So I wanted to take a couple of minutes to talk about our intended audience. If you're considering designing, deploying, or replacing a command center, you might be working for a police department or fire department looking to lower crime or increase 911 dispatch efficiency for first responders. You might be helping a major logistics company track the movement of critical freight worldwide. Or you're tasked with monitoring loads and capacity and coordinating outage response in a utility control center. Maybe you manage a global security operations center for a hospital system or major technology company, analyzing and responding to security incidents. On the other hand, you might perform Red Force tracking or monitor a battle space for one or more of our DoD branches. This is just a sample of domains we deal with every day, and down below you'll see a subset of use cases we see on a regular basis. Some, like real-time crime centers and 911 dispatch, are market-specific. Others, like SOCs and NOCs, are common across many companies and agencies. Regardless of use case, all these sites have key criteria in common. These are mission-critical sites staffed around the clock and throughout the year. They typically require a very large number of sources and dynamic layouts. They're designed to provide a global common operating picture. And finally, they must support expedited decision-making and response. By the way, I know that some of you might be using your organization's conference rooms to convey some of this critical information via video teleconferencing. That's perfectly normal, but somewhere there must be one or more dedicated rooms equipped with highly optimized platforms that meet the requirements above. Whenever I attend webinars with best practices in the title, I find myself wondering, how are you actually qualified to speak about best practices? It's a term that's almost overused at this point, so I think it behooves us to back up our experience. First of all, we've designed and deployed over 800 systems worldwide. Some of these are single room deployments, but many efforts entail repeat deployments for global enterprises. As discussed, we've created the broadest array of command center environments, from SOCs and NOCs to emergency operations centers and utility control centers. We've deployed miniaturized, ruggedized technology to support mobile command centers for first responders and warfighters in the field. We've also supported arena-sized watch floors with hundreds of panels. Learning along the way about how operators act and react in the command center environment has informed our product lifecycle and given rise to innovations such as the one we'll be discussing here. So now we come to the critical issue that needs to be addressed. The explosion of web-based content flow has become a cliche in our everyday work and private lives. We've added a few statistics here for emphasis, but none of you should need much convincing. In command center environments, we're seeing an even greater dependency on URL feeds, mainly from cloud or SaaS applications. For instance, we see these types of applications used across private and public sectors to monitor and manage network traffic and security. In public safety and defense, it's common to consume geospatial resources to support incident control or battlefield awareness. Desktop applications aren't going away tomorrow, but there's not a technology analyst that doesn't predict a continued spike in web-based solutions. As traditional business solutions have migrated off-site, Facebook, Twitter, and other web-based social apps have created a different torrent of URL-based traffic. No surprise that the tools that dominate social collaboration now provide primary channels for interacting with business brands, making sentiment analysis a critical marketing function. Similarly, social media is quickly becoming the standard communication protocol, linking physical communities to their first responders. Every public safety customer relates to us stories about how citizens use Facebook and Twitter to report incidents and even pass along rich media content. We see one of the most dramatic examples of this during a widespread emergency. Citizens affected by a tropical storm or wildfire might submit eyewitness reports at the same time responders are broadcasting information concerning response, severity, evacuation routes, etc., via the same social channels. As we speak, certain parts of the country are confronting multiple converging threats, which can put a heavy URL load on emergency operation centers or any command center supporting first responders. So this might be obvious to some of you, but why does URL-based content pose a bigger challenge than other sources consumed in your command center? The simple answer is the need to dedicate a compute resource to each stream. When we survey legacy environments that customers have asked us to replace, we routinely see operator desktops co-opted for website access. In more extreme examples, we see racks of blades in some server closet that do nothing but serve up web content to the video processor. I'm sure everyone on this call understands the cost and effort required to maintain servers, especially those that serve a single purpose. We've addressed the issue of dedicated server resources, but what happens as we continue to add more and more URL sources to a traditional video processor? After all, just one graphically dense site link like Google Earth can consume a large portion of the onboard GPU resources. Add a dozen or more such sources, and your wall may well become unusable. What we're describing here is not just based on math or formulas. We often directly experience command centers where capacity is at or beyond the limit. What happens then? For one, new sources can no longer be added, which constrains scalability. Worse yet, performance degrades to the extent that layouts take literally minutes to refresh. Calls to vendor support organizations become a daily routine, and finally, operators and stakeholders lose confidence in the overall ability of the command center. At this point, vendors typically suggest a costly hardware upgrade, but how long until the new processor runs out of capacity? Having studied the problem for some time, CineMassive decided to take a different approach. Just as the GPU was ushered in during the late 90s to offload processing load from desktop CPUs, today's situation requires a similar offloading of processor resources to adapt to an increasing flood of graphically intensive URL sources. In short, we developed an appliance called CineAgent that is powerful, compact, and delivers the firepower to process up to 4 URL streams simultaneously. It's half the size of the average blade, costs less, and has a very minimal maintenance footprint. In addition, CineAgent allows operators to effectively interact, not just view websites. So instead of adding or upgrading video processors, you simply add CineAgents as you require more URL sources. So to recap, we're trying to eliminate the 3 C's: cost, clutter, and chaos. At the same time, we're helping future-proof your control rooms as more and more web content dominates and your need to view and interact increases. Finally, it's important to know that CineMassive doesn't develop these peerless features and functionality in a vacuum. We collaborate with customers, like the one you see here, that consume hundreds of content sources. Most of these companies also manage some of the largest networks worldwide, where throughput and security are critical factors. At this point, you might be thinking, all of those CineAgent features and benefits sound great, but what level of performance can we really expect? For that, I'm excited to transition to my coworker, Aaron Leiker. Aaron has been working at CineMassive for over 8 years. In that time, he's helped create some of the most innovative command center designs, including global operation centers for 2 of the largest network providers. I'm confident that you'll come away impressed with the functionality and performance of CineAgent as Aaron walks you through our demonstration.
Thank you, Tom. I really appreciate it. Before we get going on the demo, I wanted to take a minute to explain how this demonstration system is set up. This also helps illustrate the unique topology of the CineAgent system. As you will see, going from left to right, the sources being on the left, moving to the right, we have our video displays and video teleconference system. The CineAgents are going out to the internet or intranet and accessing the websites. It is then each CineAgent node, as we refer to them, is then sending two unique streams. One stream, which I call the video stream, is optimized for the Alpha FX processor. It's high quality, low latency, and a stream that processor can produce in varying quantities based on the configuration of the processor. The other stream is the KVM stream. This is the stream that the user interacts with in their user interface. I have one CineAgent set up to demonstrate the pinned CineAgent feature, and the other CineAgent is set up as the variable CineAgent feature. The variable CineAgent setting allows you to access actually n number of websites from one unit, but just 4 at one time. So that's the total amount of web applications that each CineAgent node can render at one time, but it does not mean that you are only limited to 4, only 4 at one time on the video display. And I have some layouts in the demonstration that can articulate this very well. Now you will notice that these web applications are not actually running on the processor. That is by design. Actually, as of CineNet 2, our second iteration of the CineNet platform, we used to run web applications directly on the processor using the Windows operating system to open a browser session and navigate to a specific URL. We experienced a number of challenges that ultimately affected our users. The number one effect was there was no good way to predict that user's experience long term. You could predict it with reasonable certainty day one, as you kind of knew the number of URLs and how they would interact with a processor at that moment in time. It was very predictable day one. However, as the system aged and the user changed URLs, those URLs became more graphically intense. Maybe they wanted more access to URLs. The scalability and performance of the entire system suffered. So the processor was stuck to being a web application generator and couldn't even do the other things that it was designed to do, like capture workstations, produce a great visual on the various video walls. All of those things are all competing for the same resources that are fixed, relatively fixed, at the moment in time we produced the processor. This led to long-term challenges, and challenges we hear from our users who are using alternative platforms. And one of the things we wanted to do was, before we launched into CineNet 3 and carried that feature over, we wanted to take a step back and reevaluate how can we bring a predictable user experience to these customers for not just day one, but day 300, day 700, day 1500. How do we make a system that scales as the information required scales? And how can we make it very easy to use at the same time? So we ended up launching Synanet 3 without this feature. And for quite a while we looked at how can we do this, and we ultimately came to the conclusion that you must run these web applications on another computer, which would solve the resource problem, but it doesn't necessarily solve the usability problem. It's still very cumbersome to use. You still have to use possibly some third-party software like VNC or remote desktop in order to control that application. So it was a very technical ask for some user groups. Over time, we kept getting our customers saying, "Hey, we love everything about the Alpha effects and Synanet. We just really wish you could produce, web applications in a better way than some of the ways Tom described. Racks of computers, or surrendering customer, or end user desktops." And ultimately, we came up with Syna Agent. And it's a really exciting technology. It actually is what makes it so amazing is, as easy as it is to use, it is also very, very complex in the back end. The CineMassive development team did a fantastic job of taking that extremely complex set of behaviors and made it extremely easy to use. And I'm going to show you that now. So here I am about to log into Synanet 3. We are using our demonstration system. I have another system that's already logged in, and it's just going to produce content which is being streamed to the demonstration system that I'm using. I'm going to log in. You'll see that I am accessing Synanet through a browser. I'm actually not near this processor. I'm demonstrating it from my office. I'm going to log in. You'll see here that we have a number of options. These are called activities. These activities are set up here at CineMassive to launch into demonstrations that support each of these end user types. So whether it's an emergency operations center or physical security operations center, or cyber security, or a power utility, we can kind of quickly adapt this system to that workflow with the touch of one button. For the sake of this demonstration, I'm going to use our network operations activity, just because that use case tends to be very web application driven. Almost all of the tools out there are generally web applications, so I've set that up for this demonstration. So as I launch into that activity, it's preparing the video wall for me. It's actually just sharing the what we call the wallpaper. Down below, I have created 4 layouts for this webinar. If I click on assets, these are the individual pieces of content that I can place on the wall. We refer to these as assets. I have on the right here the ability to add other types of content, whether it be create a time zone clock, capture an IP stream, let's say from a camera, create a KVM stream. That's where we interface with VNC, manage computers, add files. So this is how you can add picture files and video files directly to Synanet without having to interact with the physical processor in any way. And of course, what we're going to spend some time on later is accessing websites. On the right here is our device control section. So this is where you would interact with third-party devices, video teleconferences, audio systems, cable TV, media players, and then below that is our behaviors section, and that's where you can essentially customize the user interface to some extent, adding features or functions or macros in an ad hoc way whenever your workflow dictates it. So just so everybody has a good understanding of just how easy it is to place content, before we get into the CineAgent specific component of this webinar, I'm going to just quickly build a layout using a variety of sources. Let's just grab a Blu-ray player, media player. We can grab a few time zones, our cable TV box that we have here, and let's go grab some CineAgents as well. And I've quickly made this layout. I'm going to now save this so we can possibly recall it later. Let's call this the demo layout. And save. So that just shows you just how easy it is to create, and you can continue to create these as needed. You can have as many as you want. I'm now going to quickly demonstrate device control, and then I promise we will start talking CineAgent. So if I have a device on screen like this cable box and I need to change channel, I'm going to just go ahead and use the guide, and here I am. I'll just keep the same channel. If I need to hear it, I can of course change the volume, change channel up here, and I have full control as well. The same thing for any of the other devices as well. So if I needed to hear this, I can select it. So I'm going to clear this layout, and we're going to go to some of the others. So I talked about our pinned CineAgents and our variable CineAgent node. I've made a layout with our pinned CineAgents, so I'm going to call that now. What this is doing is these are applications, web applications that are they're running constantly. They don't have to, nothing goes, you're not navigating to the URL or opening that browser for the first time. So this would be for content in your operations center that is extremely consistent. And here's the very interesting thing. So all of these are actually fairly graphically intense applications. So here we have Google Earth, and I'm going to control it here. So I am interacting with it. This interaction can happen with both a mouse and touch. So one of the really cool things is you can actually use like a Microsoft Surface or an iPad and actually be interacting with this content via touch. So if your web application is kind of designed for that touch interactive experience, like this one would be with fairly large icons, you could actually interact with it. So let's put this one down and go into another one, and this is just to show you how powerful the CineAgent machines are. So this one CineAgent node is rendering Google Earth. It's also got this really interesting, this is just a WebGL demo, so it just shows, hey, this is rendering 3D graphics in real time. I'll put that back. You'll notice it's still on the wall. Let's go to one of our Esri applications. This is a satellite map, and we are navigating this. Let's just spin that and exit, and of course we have some other, just other 2D enterprise threat monitor type applications here. So this is pinned CineAgents, and you'll notice that they just snapped right up. So that's another value add of the pinning feature. So now I'm going to launch a layout that has variable CineAgents. So here we go. This is what CineAgent is doing right now, is it's going out to these web applications and spinning them up for the first time. So these browser sessions actually weren't there before, and if I clear them from the wall, it's going to remove, it's going to basically turn that browser session off. What this allows you to do is actually have access to way more content than normal, and you're just going to cycle it in and out as needed. Of course, you can still do everything that you expected to do. So if I want to see the weather in Atlanta, Georgia, this snaps there, and put that back. And of course I can interact with all the other applications as well. So I'm going to click my second layout. So basically when I click this second variable Cine agent layout, it's going to remove these websites. So it's going to turn off those browser sessions, and it's going to reuse the same Cine agent node but with different web applications. So let's click that. So it went out and it went and got the 4 new web applications using the same hardware. And again, one of them, just to demonstrate how powerful these units are, this is rendering 3D graphics in real time. And that's just to show you that no matter what that application is, you can still utilize it with CineAgent. You don't have to worry about the resources of the processor anymore. Now I'm going to bring on a layout that has the combination of pinned and variable assets. So this went out and it got the pinned assets, of course, and you saw those came up really, really fast because they're there and they're ready to go. And of course we have the variable assets that it had to start for the first time, but it still started extremely quick. Now I'm going to show you something else that's very interesting. So I'm going to use our behavior module that I referenced earlier, and I'm going to use one of our behavior options known as asset rotation. So this is, let's say you have a video wall and you have a lot more content that you need to see than you have video wall real estate to produce. So what you can do is you can actually ask these Cine agents to just continually rotate. So I've actually set it so that this rotates through varying applications on a 10-second interval. So I'm going to play that and I'm just going to let it run for about 20 seconds or so. So it went and started the application. It just launched right in. It started cycling them, and then in about 8 or so seconds, a little less, there you go, it's going to cycle back, and this is going to continue until you tell it to stop. So this is what we call a loop. So, and you can change that loop. You can have it be 30 seconds or a minute or 10 minutes. That is all user definable. So I'm actually going to let's let it finish, and I'm going to pause it. Now let's do something very interesting. So let's add a new web application and then insert it in to this behavior. So I'm going to go hit add website. Let's go to our website, cinemassive.com. Hit save, and I said don't pin. I'm going to go into our admin menu, and I'm going to edit this behavior. And as it loads up here, I'm going to, instead of having it rotate to Newzola, which is a web-based news application, I'm now going to have it go to Cinemassive. And of course back in, and let's rotate Cine agents again. So you'll see here, I'm going to pause it, and I'm going to launch into cinemassive.com. So really exciting stuff. We've wanted to make it really easy to use. We wanted to make it very powerful, very scalable, and really solve a lot of those very interesting workflow problems, both in the command center and if you are remote. I mean, you may have noticed that because this is also a browser, and because this is actually extremely responsive, I can use this from anywhere that has connectivity back to the site manager and alpha processor. We really appreciate you guys joining. I'm going to turn it back over to Chris to move us into the Q&A section. Thank you.
All right, Aaron, thank you so much for walking us through that Cine Agent showcase and highlighting all its key features. If anyone is interested in seeing an interactive demo specifically for your organization, please email us at sales@cinemassive.com, and we'd be happy to schedule some time to show the platform to you. Again, that's sales@cinemassive.com. Now let's go ahead and move on to the Q&A. Please go ahead and submit your questions in the bottom right-hand corner. Make sure you click on the question mark icon. It'll get funneled right into our feed, and we'll begin addressing them. All right, here. Our first question is, as the video feeds come in, can we still crop the web content?
Yes, you can.
And let's see, we've got some more. I'm kind of filtering through them here. Next question up. So I'm understanding this can be operated remotely.
Yes, so CineNet can be operated remotely. CineAgent, which is the component of CineNet that produces the web URLs, would be controlled by that. So yes, what you need to do that is you have to have obviously access to CineNet, so network continuity, either through a VPN or, and you can also, you need a credential to access CineNet as well, whether that's using CineNet's own permissionings system or some sort of SAML 2.0 based permissioning system.
All right, and our next question up. Can it be connected to DoD SIPR?
So CineAgent is literally brand new. We have not gone through any sort of certifications to be directly connected to SIPR. So the answer right now would be no.
All right, and up next, what browser does CineAgent use?
CineAgent uses the Chromium browser, which is the browser that Google Chrome and Microsoft Edge is based on.
All right, we have some more coming in here. What is the current CineNet release that's available?
3.7 is what's currently available. That was released, I believe, about 2 weeks ago.
Pardon me here. Jumped ahead there. Next up, can I run antivirus on CineAgent?
Yes. Since these are effectively Windows 10 PCs, you can load antivirus on there, and there's really no expectation of any conflicts with the CineNet or CineAgent component with your antivirus.
Okay, terrific. As a side, I see a submitted question asking if this is just a question section or will answers to the questions be given. We are displaying the questions and also answering them with Aaron Leiker. If you're unable to hear anything, I'd check the settings, but I realize as I say that, they wouldn't be able to hear that. So you might have to check settings if you have any previous issues here, but we'll try and move through the questions. Let's see, up next. If power is interrupted, is there a built-in backup capability?
So each CineAgent, so there's several aspects to power. So obviously, as I showed in the initial slide, there's an alpha processor. That's what's rendering the content on the video wall. That has two power inlets and redundant power supplies. So one would generally be on feed A, and the other one would be on feed B, which could be generator backed up. Or UPS backed up. The product itself does not have any power backup capabilities. As far as the CineAgent goes, it has a single power receptacle. The power redundancy method there is you would just have an additional, either an additional power brick or another node. And then as far as data backup, the data is actually not backed up on CineAgent. The network the primary SYNANET, where SYNANET is run, that actually has 3 levels of data backup. The SYNANET level is backed up on an interval that you can define, and then of course there's a operating system backup, and then oftentimes in our like our core and our elite category processors, they often have 2 drives, so there's a cold spare as a third level of data backup. So hopefully that answers what I believe the 2 aspects of that question are.
Okay, terrific. Moving on, our next. If a system is using Chrome boxes with the token, can you run it on the Cine agent to put it on a video wall?
I am not sure. So you have. I'm going to attempt to take a stab at that question. So Cine agent is actually a device from CineMassive. So if you need some sort of like authentication with that website, you would have to insert that, what's likely, I guess, a physical authentication device into the Cine agent device that is running those web applications. That's how I would expect it to work. So I know we've worked with a few users who use like USB keys as authentication, and there's no reason to believe that wouldn't work if I'm answering your question correctly here.
Okay, coming up next. Can Cine agent run applications other than web apps?
So with the next release, so we're, as I mentioned earlier, we're at SYNANET 3.7. There will be a 3.8 in the relative future. We are anticipating rolling out the ability to use Cine agent with select applications. Technically speaking, it can run an exe file, which is generally speaking most desktop applications. It would be prudent, though, that we test the interactivity if anybody has any interest in that feature set.
All right, and up next, is HA and AFO supported?
I am not familiar with those acronyms. So we'll have to get back to you on that one.
Yeah, if you have any other additional follow-ups to that, I can go ahead and post them up as well, and we can look into that. Let's see here.
Unless you're, I'm going to take a stab. High availability and auto failover. So they are. So they're an N+1 design by design. They do not necessarily auto failover from a website perspective. But there are many redundancy designs in the SYNANET platform from the Cine agent perspective, which is just a component of SYNANET. The high availability would be the N+1 architecture. And from an auto failover standpoint, you wouldn't necessarily need to auto failover the Cine agent portion itself, but there are many ways to do that within the SYNANET platform. And if you have more, if you'd like to know more, I would reach out to sales@cinemassive.com, and we can go into those various. We have many options on high availability and redundancy designs.
All right, and another question we have coming in here. Let's see. Get this loaded in. Is it compatible with the Striker?
The Strike and the Strike SR. Yes, I have no reason to believe that it would not work with those units. You might have some limitations just because they're smaller. There's a less graphic processing power, so there would be a limitation, as there would be with anything. So.
Okay, I believe we have everything submitted so far. We'll give a moment for any follow-up questions right now. I don't see anything else coming through at the moment, but we'll give it just a brief second here. If have any other questions, make sure you submit them in the lower right, and Aaron can answer them. Here we are. Another coming in. Does it support Miracast, Bluetooth, and Wi-Fi?
No. It does not have a Wi-Fi chip or Bluetooth chip in the appliance. Miracast is a kind of a different function. One thing to differentiate is like this is not a way, for instance, to send a mobile device into Synanet. We have other ways of doing that. This product is designed to go get web application content either on an intranet or internet. So you wouldn't use Wi-Fi traditionally in the command center context to do that, and not Bluetooth nor Miracast. So I'm going to say no. But also, I don't. The product itself, as it's designed, wouldn't benefit from any of those technologies anyway.
All right, let's see if we have any additional questions coming in. We've got another one here. Get that up on the screen for everyone. Can we stream in SCADA applications?
So if the SCADA application is web-based, it should work natively with the platform. If it is a full application, we would be able to test it with the next release against the desktop application version of CineAgent. So we suspect yes, specifically since the majority of them are starting to show up as web-based applications.
All right, terrific. And I believe that's everything we have right now. Give it just one more moment to see if we have any additional questions coming in.
On this topic as well, I mean, if you are just streaming an existing SCADA application, I mean, we have other technologies in Synanet that could catch that stream as well. Synanet is just another way of getting there. If you use CineAgent, though, it gives you also the KVM capabilities.
Have an additional one we missed up originally here. Let me get this up here for you. Can CineAgent be used across multiple networks?
Yes. So it is inherently multi-network in design. Each CineAgent node actually has two network ports, and they can be separated in different networks. One could be a content aggregation network, and the other network can be used to produce the KVM and video streams that are on the processor. And then if you had a second CineAgent or third CineAgent or n number of CineAgent nodes, it could be connected to those networks as well.
I think we have another one coming through here. One moment. Here we are. Can it save username passwords for accessing certain sites?
No, but that is by design. So most why a website would have authentication is for security purposes and securing that web application and gating its access. CineMassive, we decided we're not going to build anything that could circumvent that. However, that doesn't prevent the user from deciding to use other tools like various scripting tools that could insert username and passwords for the user, and there's various methods in doing that. So the CineAgent and Synanet platform will not do that for you, but that doesn't mean you are completely prevented from doing so.
All right, let me go through here, double check if we have any additional ones. Up here we've got one more. With CineAgent, what level of performance can I expect on the video wall?
So the CineAgent stream at both the video wall and the browser are going to come in at 1920 by 1080p at 30 frames per second. So very, very, very high performant, and much higher performance than you'd see from any other video KVM type stream device.
Okay, excellent. We'll give it one more moment to see if we have any additional questions coming in. This is our last one for now. All right. Oh, one moment. We got a couple coming in here. We get these published for you, Aaron. Do you also provide public APIs to support these functionalities?
We do not have public APIs. We do have APIs that can access various parts of Cinenet. So with a deeper conversation and NDAs, we can look at providing training and assistance with API. We also have parts of our organization that can assist with development on that as well.
Okay, I believe that's all the questions we have submitted here. All right, we will go ahead and wrap it up for today. Everyone, thank you so much again for joining us here today. You will all soon receive an email with a link to this very recorded presentation. In addition, we would also like to invite you to attend our next webinar on June 30th, titled The Emergency Operations Center of the Future, Adapting Disaster Management to Handle Simultaneous Threats. You can register today or look for an invitation coming to your inbox soon. We hope to see you there and have a great day.